So happy Friday. I have a little update for you. No, the car is not fixed, but I have a tiny little update. So while I'm talking, I'm gonna put on the screen what we did for troubleshooting today. So this was the cold start this morning, and you can see that the fuel, what the fuel percentage were for short-term and long-term. In the last 24, 48 hours, I've watched so many technical videos on fuel, short-term, long-term, fuel flow on these cars. And I watched all these videos, and then I called my buddy Andrew at GIAC. GIAC Tuning is who tuned my car. Well, I got it tuned locally, but it was a GIAC tune. And Andrew has been super helpful. Anytime I've had any kind of question or something related to the tune, he's been on it. And just talking to him, and when I've seen this issue start, this and that, we've kind of narrowed it down, just from conversation only, that it's probably the O2 sensors. Now, I was under the assumption that the O2 sensor is going to give me a hard fault. They do when they fail, or they relate to emissions. But when they run a little lean, a little rich, using a non-P-Wiz or using some other brand scanner, it doesn't always give you the information you need. So I used my iCar soft scanner, which is a really good scanner, and it does a lot of good things, but it cannot see to the detail that the P-Wiz can, or a Durametric if you've got Durametric. Durametric can also see the very fine detail that Porsche can see. And with those scanners, you can see if your O2 sensors are good or bad. Now I can run a test with mine, like I've done. Actually, let me do the test right now. I'll show you the test. So I can do a test. I can look at the numbers on them, but it doesn't tell me if they're failing or not. The only indicator that they're not working is the long-term fuel. The long-term fuel, which is right here, you see it's too rich. It shouldn't be that rich. And so just having the conversation of how did this happen? What have I done to the car? Where did I put my hands on the car? Well, when I first started having this issue was shortly after we changed the spark plugs. And actually, I take that back. Even before that, I didn't have this issue, but I had, like, you'd turn on cold start and the car would, as the idle would come down, like it did in the beginning of this video, when the idle would come down and start kind of bouncing a little bit, it would do that. But I didn't have the off throttle issue until a little bit later. As soon as I changed the plugs, that's around that time, either right before or right after I changed the plugs last year, I noticed when I'm off throttle, when the car was cold, I'd have this little bit of an issue. Now this year, I changed the plugs, or a few weeks ago, I changed the plugs and coil packs. In both instances, I took off the upstream O2 sensor, and I didn't disconnect it from the Canon plug or the connector. I just undid it and twisted it and put it out of the way, and then counted my turns so that when I reinstalled it, it was 3.5. I think it was 3.5 turns. I pre-twisted the wire 3.5 turns and then installed it. Maybe I messed up the wire inadvertently, but just talking to Andrew, he said a lot of times, even not doing that, just taking them off internally, those things are ceramic, and internally just taking them off and breaking them loose, sometimes the ceramic cracks. You can't see it because it's got a heat shield on it, so that's why you'll never see it. But internally it could be broken. He said every time someone else changes, or other people with this generation of vehicles change their exhaust system, by default, they always change the O2 sensors because they crack, they break, just installing and removing them. And sometimes they won't break, they'll just have a little crack that'll allow the internal chambers of it. I watched this other really cool video about O2 sensors, which is awesome. And it shows the internal chambers and how it gets air and all that. It'll hurt your head. But basically, if they have a crack, the O2 sensor itself can kind of create like a sort of pseudo vacuum leak internally, and it won't read right, and it's taking data from the mass airflow sensor, and so the adjustments are wrong. I'm going to do this one last thing. I've already ordered them. I've ordered some O2 sensors for my car. They won't be here till next week, though, unfortunately, till the end of next week. So be no videos of doing that anytime soon. But I ordered O2 sensors. We're going to replace the two O2 sensors because I have removed them and installed them multiple times, never replaced them. And that's kind of makes sense what I need to do. So the O2 sensors are in order. They should be here, less than 10 days from now. And then we'll install them, and fingers crossed the problem is fixed. If the problem is not fixed after I install the O2 sensors, no more, that's it. The car is gonna go to Porsche or my independent shop, and it's gonna get scanned, and they're gonna have to figure out what the heck is wrong with it. Because I've tried to do the troubleshooting steps myself to figure out what's wrong with the car, but so far no luck. But it does make logical sense. The things that I have removed or messed with on this car are the throttle body, the mass airflow sensor, the airbox numerous times, the changeover valve that I broke, the plugs and coils, and the O2 sensors. I have removed and messed with the O2 sensors more than once and have never replaced them. So that's definitely going to be on the list of things to replace. I just want to give you that little update. I wish I had better information or had a smoking gun, but I don't. Actually, I smoke test the car again today just to be sure. When the engine was cold, nothing, no vacuum leaks that I could find anywhere. I checked in different parts. I even pulled off the oil cap, oil filler cap, and checked through there because then that would check the crankcase. And I was like, good. I hope I don't have a leak in the case of the engine, and I didn't, of course. But that was I was worried about that too, and no, it's no problem. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no leaks that I can tell. AOS is good, PCV is good, intakes are good. So, the kind of process of elimination, O2 sensors is going to be the next thing we're going to change. Now, I didn't order the downstream O2 sensors. And the difference between those is one is before the cat, one is right after the cat. But I've never touched those O2 sensors ever. Never removed them, never twisted the wires. So they should work. They should be working just fine. I mean, sure, they could also be faulty, but we don't know. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this is it, and we get some good O2 sensors. All right, enjoy your weekend. Catch you guys later.